Yeah, Coach. We had a little 24 hours here, or close to it, or not really close to it. But have you rethought the timeout situations at halftime and um the rationale behind not using those timeouts, and then in the final regulation drive?
Yeah, halftime was really easy, Dillard. Just like I told you last night, you always want to end the ball in the half with the ball, excuse me. And we could have burned that one timeout. We had that one on the sideline where it saved us about 6 seconds, and potentially gave us two shots as opposed to one to Drake at the end of the half. Because you're going to kick it on fourth down anyway, to take the points to make sure you get insured at points. But we could have probably saved about 6 seconds at the end of half, but we wanted to end the half with the ball, and we're able to do that. So we're able to get down and get a couple completions in a row. A couple of those were out of bounds, actually, really efficient timing by the young quarterback and the guys. The one inbounds, we kind of ran to the ball. We're able to get another playoff, click it off, get it to Cal. He steps out of bounds. The next thing you know, you got 11 seconds. You take the shot deep to Drake. You love to hit that play, walking with the touchdown. Everybody's throwing a pool party, but unfortunately, we're not. We had to kick the field goal right there. 6 seconds, leaves 2 seconds on the clock. They come out, take a knee, and you get accomplished what you want to get accomplished, other than completing that pass at the interception at the end. When you talk about the 2 minute at the end of the game, a little bit more tricky. Right, you got the ball, you got 40 seconds left, and you hit a big time play to Mooney, and you get that big time play to Mooney right there, and you really, in our opinion, right there, wanted to jump the ball with the reason being behind it is to keep the regulated rush. Right, if we call timeout right there, if we clock it, we do in those situations like that, we stop the clock. That allows them in their fringe area to bring out some of their unregulated rushes, their designer blitzes, their zeros, all those type of things, their satellite like coverage that we know about from Quinny and what they've been able to do and have a lot of success with. But what we're able to do is get a four-man rush, regulated rush with the guys that we know coming, get those guys blocked up, catch a two-man in the back end, and get us a really good look on the sideline to Mooney that we just missed. And it took a little too long, and I'd like to have that back, obviously, because it didn't work, and possibly call a timeout and go against the harder looking defense or take a chance that I'm going to get the harder looking defense. But man,
Mhm.
in hindsight, if we can just hit that one route and we get a chance to have the timeouts to utilize the whole field on the next throws, then we get a chance to get in better position to make it an easier field goal to end the day in regulation. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way for me. And I know it's always going to be questioned, and fairly so, and fairly granted to you guys, but you got to make those decisions at the heat of the moment. And with my study, knowing the people, knowing the personnel of Joe Witt and Quinn on what's going to happen if that clock gets stopped and how it's going to go down for my young quarterback when it comes to protection purposes, I wanted to get him a regulated four-man rush with my guy standing in the pocket, being able to deliver a throw. I'm being able to get it done. And this is not throwing my guy under the bus by any means. I will ride with this guy anywhere and all the time. And I hate when that even comes out that I'm trying to do that. I'm just simply explaining the rationale
Mhm.
and the thought process behind it because I really believed in it at the time. And when you look back at it, obviously you got to question it and you got to second guess. Being a first year guy, second game, do you want to handle that differently? Maybe. But I tell you what, man, like when you even go to Zeno, talk to us a minute, but when you even go to that in the stats, it's a 50-50 whether you do it or not and how you go about that process. Just like to be able to get it done a lot faster. We like to be able to get it done and complete it. And you like to see the results if it happened the way we had planned it out.
Mhm. And I guess the other side of that would be, hey, you got if you do call it, you got if we got our math right, it's 17 seconds, and you could get a couple plays off of 17 seconds, and maybe have your stuff ready for the designer blitzes.
No, 100%. It's just we're talking about zeros, Led. And we're talking about zeros, you're
Mhm.
talking about, we need a chunk yardage plays, right? And
Okay.
when you got zero plays, you do have chunk yardage options, but those chunk yardage options are not as good as the regulated four-man rush with coverage behind it, with your quarterback stepping into and having a clean pocket, throwing the ball down the field. Clearly you guys all know, but like those get tougher. You talk about catch and run opportunities, using those timeouts, doing some of those things, and having the ability to do that, which you can do. But when you need chunk yardage plays and you got a chance to keep the clock moving, and you're on offense and you're an offensive guy and you're in 2 minute, and you want to keep those things going, most of the times it's harder to get to those designer pressures when you're coming out of that moving clock situation that you're able to get them into when you're in those moments. But I don't
Thank
disagree with you, Led. Just something like I'm not going to fight this. Something you always consider and think about. You know,
you.
um, and you definitely go back to second guessing when it doesn't work for sure.
Thank you.
No problem.
Mark Zeno.
Rob, we've talked so much about the process.
of this whole thing and how you manage the game. I mean, in those moments, I know you have a game management person who handles some of that for you. I mean, is the decision solely on you to call the timeout?
No, we got a whole process with that whole thing, right? But like, it's all about what I just talked about, right, Zen? And like this thing is done throughout the course of the week, and you know what you're gonna get when you stop the clock. You know what you're gonna get when you get moving clock. You have a plan, a detailed idea, at least what you think you're gonna get. And when you get those regulated looks and you're able to dictate those terms, you like to be able to utilize that as much as possible. So when you go through those moments and you say you want to have a moving clock to get the 4-man rush like we got with a 2-man look, with an outside breaker, and the potential to get an explosive play, get out of bounds, and then deal with those regulated looks or not get out of bounds, use the timeout. You can deal with those things. But like those things are always going to be a part of the process. They're always going to be a part of it. But at the end of the day, there are football intelligence that go behind that as well. When you're talking about coaching staff, you're talking about numbers, you're talking about everything being piled together. And then you got to make decisions. So Zeno, you can certainly blame me for making a decision to not call a timeout. No. I'm not saying that. I'm talking. I'm talking to you because you're my therapy session here on the couch, right? I'm talking about you want to make those decisions, and you got to be efficient, you got to be effective, and you got to be upfront and like definitely take the fault. Like looking back, man, hey, let's take a timeout, get the hard look, see if we can complete it, right? I get it, but if it go down like you think, or you can get some of those things done, I love the process. We just got to get better results.
I guess the question here is your unqualified therapist is that it's week 17. This process should be down by now. It should be seamless by 17 or 16 iterations of this whole thing. That it should it feels like, at least to the outside eye. And again, you guys obviously have more information than we do in the moment, and you're working with more people. But naturally, it just looks optically, it's like this is the timeout, this is the spot. What process needs to be involved at that point that hasn't already been, the kinks haven't been worked out by week 17?
Yeah, we're not talking kinks here. We're talking about a brand new quarterback playing in his second game this season. And we did this a couple weeks ago with Kirk Cousins, and it happened a little faster, right? Those things all happen. And like that's the thing that you got to always think that's coming to happen new. It's going to be new people involved. It's going to be new things involved. It's going to be new defenses every single week. New situations you get. It's just not a regulated thing on a piece of paper that says call a timeout. That definitely the suggestions. It's definitely some of the things. A lot of those situations, and that situation particularly, it says 50-50 whether you call timeout, and we chose not to. And like I'm telling you is we got to have a faster operation there in order to get the things that we want to get worked. We definitely got the regulated look with the 2-man look with the opportunity to make the completion. We didn't execute it. And this is not blaming anybody. This is saying that something we got to get better at. And something that I got to take into account is I do have a young quarterback. I do have a guy playing the second game of his season. I do have a guy probably, I don't know if he got 2 minutes the week before, but in one of his 1 or 2 minutes in the National Football League. So I got to take those things into account. So I definitely could take that stuff. So like as simple as you make it seem, it's not. You got to go through the whole process of being able to do that with your guys, with your players, and put them in those positions all the time.
Mark Ramondi.
Hey, Raheem.
Hey, Mark.
Just wanted to ask you if you could elaborate on the decision to start, Kadar Hodge and play him more than he has, and not play Ray McLeod as much as he has.
He actually played 40 snaps yesterday, and we put Kadar out there probably 20 or 6 or so. I don't know the exact number, but I know he could. Ray ended up playing more, but the guys we put out there, we make as a team decision to what we want to do, and some things want to get executed. It was a team decision that we made to put those guys out there yesterday. We utilized more receivers yesterday, as you guys have mentioned yesterday. When you're talking about using a little bit of Kadar Hodge, we used a little bit of Coach Blair. Obviously Mooney came off from that one thing that we talked about yesterday with the injury, but we're able to utilize a couple more people just in the last couple of weeks. Chris Blair got his first catch a couple of weeks ago. Ray's out there giving us everything that he's got, and we had the ability to do that. So that was just a decision made by team, decision made by myself.
I wanted to ask you also about something that Drake and Mike said last night about how, they're still obviously developing chemistry, and I think they had a discussion at halftime where, they said we've only played together really for 6 quarters.
No doubt.
And I guess my question to you is what is this degree of difficulty with, a rookie quarterback playing with these receivers kind of almost for the first time in real games in the middle of the playoff race? It seems like a pretty steep learning curve for him.
It really is. It's tough, but it's nothing you can complain about, right, Mark? So here's the situation you're talking about. You're talking about a guy that's a great anticipatory thrower. And Mike throws the ball with great anticipation. He lets that thing go a la the fourth down to Kyle Pitts in the back of the end zone, throwing that ball well before the break, in and out of the break, in between two defenders. Great anticipation, right? And when you throw the ball that way, just like on the interception, if somebody runs the wrong route and you throw the ball with great anticipation that they're going to be there and they're not, that lets you down and you can get an interception. But most of the great quarterbacks that we know that we've seen throw the ball with great anticipation and they throw before the guy's open. That we call it throwing them open, right? So when you're talking about that, and Drake and him are talking about that, you're talking about their work and what they need to do on their indicators when breaks are going to happen and when he's going to come out. Some of the outside breaking routes that Drake's been able to run that's been seemed like they're seamless. Some of those pressure routes that we ran yesterday with Drake that are awesome. Those are things you got a lot of accumulated reps on. And then the one in the back of the end zone or a couple in the back of the end zone the other day, we did not. And those are things you got to work on. So that's the things that they're talking about, getting that constant work together, which will go on this week, which will go on after this week, which will go on into the offseason, which will go on for these guys for a long time. We see those things, like I can only think about the tandems that have been together for a long time. When you're talking about the great ones, right? Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that is time on task. And that's what we're talking about when you're talking about being able to get those things. And it is a tall task to ask the guy to step in and be able to do those things. And it's the reason we didn't absolutely want to do those things right away. We were put in a situation that we are.
Thanks.
Colin.
Hey, Rod, two quick things. How much consideration, if any, did you give to going for two at the end of the fourth?
Did not. I thought, go down there, kick the field goal, kick it off, and get the stop like we got, and give us a couple seconds to try to get in the field goal range to win it. And I was close, and we were close, Zach. So I didn't consider that yesterday. It wasn't that mindset. The mindset was to get the ball back by the defense. Defense went out, did a great job, got a 3 and out. I was really pleased with that, because, what really hurt us in the second half, usually make those decisions based on how your defense is playing. And I know we wasn't playing as well in the second half, but it was a different ball game when you talk about the time that was on the clock. It became a passing ball game, and it became something where we can rush the passer again, and we can lock down and play coverage, and we can play some of those rush things that we had been doing and had the success early, where in the second half, the success they had was running the football, particularly with the quarterback, when he just decided to check, whoop, you know what? And he did. So we got him in another regulated situation. We had to pass the ball down the field. We can get a win, get off the grass, 3 and out, get the ball back, hopefully get a little bit better punt return, and to give ourselves a chance to put ourselves in position to kick a field goal to end that thing in regulation. Almost got it done. Did not, Zach.
Yeah, good stuff there. And the second thing was for this Sunday, how much scoreboard watching do you do? Will you do? Do you tell your guys, I don't want to know what's going on in that game? And could that be a distraction? In terms of your preparation, your game plan, not preparation, but just what you have dealing, at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
I don't think you can, Zach. I think you can only handle what you can handle, control what you can control. So I think as a professional and as what I owe to Arthur Blank and this organization and our fan base is to go out there and be completely locked into what we're doing, trying to win versus the Carolina Panthers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Josh Kendall.
Josh, you might be on mute because I don't hear anything.
I did the camera button and not the microphone button, 2 buttons.
There you go.
Apparently.
There you go, Josh. You're back.
One past my capacity. Earlier today, Bijan said that one of the guys that he tried to emulate his sort of shiftiness from was Allen Iverson. And I wonder, as a basketball guy, if that rings true to you from watching both of those guys play.
Bubba Chuck was one of the best change of direction guys in the history of basketball. And then I don't know if you got a chance to watch him as an option quarterback. But he's one of the guys that made people miss. Yeah. He made people miss at a high level, and one of the fan favorites, and one of the people that we all just marveled at, and his ability to be a smaller man to dominate in that sport, in the fashion and how he did it with the toughness that he creates. So, Bijan telling me or telling you that that's somebody that he emulated is no shocker. Bijan's one of the toughest generational talents, movers, quick, decisive thinkers. That does it with absolute passion and all-out grit every single time. That doesn't shock me one bit, and I can definitely see it.
What was y'all's evaluation of him in the draft a couple of years ago? I don't know.
Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, I don't know.
We didn't do first-round picks in LA at the time, so
right.
I didn't have to actually evaluate him, but we watched him for fun because of the Sarkisian connection. We got a chance to watch him a lot and cheer for those guys, and really be cheering for Bijan as opposed to being evaluating him because we had no shot at getting him because I don't think we had a first-round pick.
Thanks, Raheem.
No problem.
Back to Marcano.
Rob, how much faith do you still have in your process as far as game management is concerned to be able to win those close games in the last couple of minutes?
I got a lot. I watched us win a game in 12 seconds versus Tampa. I watched us be able to win a bunch of games in 2 minutes, down and score at the last minute. I watched us yesterday march down the field, scoring a fourth down 13, and be able to finish a bunch of those games. And then, like, sometimes you're going to have failure, but the guys who fear failure never have success. And I'm not going to be considered that guy. And when it doesn't go right, I'm not going to run away from it or point blame at anybody else. I'm going to take it head on. I'm going to take those. I got big shoulders. I'm going to take it on my shoulders, and I'll take that today, Mark. Fair criticism, rightful criticism, and I apologize to our fans for not being able to get it done, but I promise you we'll get it done soon.
My next question was a message to the fans. I mean, that was,
That's who I always talk. That's who I always talk to, man. Because those things are always critiqued. We sit around every week and we critique football from the couch, and I love doing it myself as well. So to be able to go back and evaluate yourself and be able to take those things on your shoulders, man, it's like Achilles, man. They'll never know your name unless you're scared to put yourself out there.
You that?
Yeah, Coach, is Caden Ellis having a Pro Bowl like season?
I mean, if you ask me, he's close to 140 tackles. I don't know how many sacks he's gotten over the last couple of weeks. He's been a dominant force for us on defense. He is one of the catalysts that has really driven the bus behind our defensive performance and our resurgence to close to some really good football. And he'll be one of those guys to push us into the future that's going to be doing a really good job for us. And he's a pleasure to coach every single day.
Anything else?
Yeah, Coach. On Jaden Daniels, what was I know it's a tough assignment anyway, but how was he able to get so free for 120 yards?
So in the first half, we were able to bottom up pretty good, other than that outside zone run that they ran, where we kind of fit it wrong. And I think he got a chunk there for about 30 or so yards. But you felt good about you. What was it, 29?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you felt good about everything else when it came to that. And then in the second half, we did such a really good job of being able to rush with vision and violence.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys did a great job in that. We lost a shoot one time with a young player in Rook and got him out the box to get him some yards. And then a couple of those plays, he checked Superman and made some people miss. I think we had 5 sacks. I bet we missed about 3 sacks on him. And he was able to get away from people. He was able to create some angles that a lot of people can't create on people. My hat's off to him when it comes to a lot of that yardage. You can go back and reflect and look at a couple things where you can say you could have fit some things better on those. But there were a couple of things where Jaden turned Jaden. And I got nothing but respect for him in football. And those guys can have those type of days if when they put their mind to it. We've seen Lamar do it, and Jaden's got very similar traits when it comes to those things.
Thank you.
No problem.